Let's finish the week off with the mailbag since we have a little bit of time. Why doesn't Jayson Tatum attack the rim more? Giving Joe Mazzulla the credit he deserves, and my favorite and funniest moments of the season right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Thanks to Blockbuster brand, it's holiday season. Drop Drew in the mix, and 3 from KP. No, we not on the Knicks. Flushing competition like Al on Giannis. Juice and Big Deuce, still Beantown's finest. Banner 18 going up in the rafters. Watch the C's game in Locked On after. Karalis on the breakdown, clutch like a tip from D. White on the breakdown. John on the mic, documenting domination. Matter pen a back bay, it's all C's nation. Rain and J's, how we started, raising business, how we finish. Locked On Celtics pod, home of the winners. Peace.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, and I got you covered every single day, Monday through Friday, with a free, fresh podcast that drops directly to your device. So make sure you are subscribed wherever you get your podcasts. Watch the show on YouTube. Get into the comment section there. Let me know what you're thinking. I'm John Karalis. If you're new to the show, I used to play a long time ago. Now I'm covering the Celtics for Boston Sports Journal. Today's show is brought to you by Monopoly Go. We got to talk more about Monopoly Go. This fast-paced game lets you team up with friends for tournaments to unlock awesome prizes like unique stickers for trading, cool playing pieces, and hilarious emojis for taunting your friends. So download Monopoly Go now for free on the Google Play Store or in the App Store. Game on. Today's a mailbag episode. Later on, I'll get into my favorite and funniest moments of the season, NBA and Celtics. We'll give Joe Mazzulla some credit in a little bit. We'll talk about Jayson Tatum. I want to just start by saying I'm sorry that it's an off day. This show probably should have been up a little bit earlier, but I was watching Knicks and Sixers and just get caught up in the game. And I had to watch that game before I recorded the show. So a little bit of a later YouTube drop, but got to watch the Sixers get eliminated. So that's always fun. So Sixers are out, Lakers are out, Bucks are out, Heat out. All of these teams, these Celtics rivals, are all out. And the Celtics, boy, things are shaping up very nicely for them. Don't know if it's going to be Cleveland or Orlando yet. Like I said yesterday, if Cleveland wins on Friday night, then game 1 is Sunday. If Cleveland loses and it goes to a game 7, then game 1 is going to be Tuesday. So we're still waiting on that. Cleveland or Orlando, Celtics should beat Cleveland or Orlando. Porzingis or no Porzingis, that should be a Celtics win. Then Knicks and Pacers. The Pacers should, I don't know if they're going to win this series, but they should run the Knicks, just ragged. And the Knicks should just beat the hell out of the Pacers. Like, that should be a nice, rough 7-game series. So things are looking pretty good for Boston. The Knicks, give them all the respect in the world, but that's not a team that I look at and go, ooh, Boston's going to really be challenged by that team. I just feel like the Knicks are, or if it's the Pacers, I just don't look at either of those teams with a ton of fear. Now, the Celtics should not have my attitude. They should have the attitude that they've had the past 3 games against the Miami Heat. So once again, I'm a podcast host. I'm a beat writer. I get to have the out there opinions, so long as the Celtics do not follow in my, if you want to call it arrogance, whatever. They have to prepare for a team that they are, going to have to work hard to beat and all of that stuff. I get to sit there and be like, ugh, boy, these should not be challenging series for Boston. That's the beauty of having my job and not being an NBA player. NBA players have to do things differently. I get to answer mailbag questions, which can be sent to me at johnkaralis.com/mailbag. johnkaralis.com/mailbag. I will say the only way I'm going to be doing these mailbags during the playoffs is in situations like this, where the Celtics have things wrapped up and we're waiting a few days for the opponent or in the next series to start, and there's not a ton to look forward to. I'm not going to spend this. It's a Friday. There's plenty of time this weekend, potentially into Monday, to discuss the Cavs or the Magic, whomever, right? So this is going to be the only chance to get these mailbags in. So infrequent. Once the offseason comes, then they will be very frequent. So just bear with me. If you don't get your question answered, I'm sorry. But let's get right into it because I keep yapping. Let's get to Bob, who asks, why does Jayson Tatum so seldom roll to the rim? It almost never happens. If we're talking about pick and roll, whenever he sets the screen, he's not setting a screen to necessarily be a roller. He's setting a screen generally to set a matchup. I know that Tatum does run the pick and roll sometimes as a screener. And hey, every once in a while, he can be the roll man. But generally, he's trying to set a screen to get a matchup because he's trying to either get the ball against a certain matchup, like you set the screen, I'm going to pin this guy, I want the ball, let me work, rather than set the screen and roll past the guy. That's not his game. He's not a pick and roll player. He's not a pick and roll screen player. So if that's what you're looking for, that's just not going to happen. It's not an element to his game. He can add it, but how often are you going to use Jayson Tatum as a screener? Like, it happens, 2-3 times a game, if that. So not the biggest problem, not the biggest element to his game. But I will say also, if you're going to set a screen, rolling to the rim is an option that you should you should have in your read repertoire. If you're setting a screen and there is a chance to get to the rim, I think what's going to happen in that situation is if Tatum reads that, he's just going to slip the screen. So there are a lot of different things he can do. And I would like to see Tatum attack in the rim in different ways, but that's why he doesn't roll whenever the few times he does set screens for a ball handler. Andrew asks, are the right guys getting the right stats in this Heat series, or are the Celtics not maximizing all their strengths in the playoffs? This question obviously came in a little bit before the series ended, but you look at the Celtics statistics, like Jayson Tatum didn't have the biggest scoring night, and you'd think, well, the right guy's getting the right stats is generally means that Tatum is going to be scoring. So first things first, small sample size, right? 5 games. There are going to be 5-game stretches throughout the course of the season where Tatum isn't necessarily the leading scorer. When I say the right guys get the right stats when you play the right way, eventually, like that's a longer term. Like when you play the right way and you move the ball, yes, the rebounders will get the rebounds, and Tatum is a rebounder, right? We got to consider that Tatum is a rebounder, and he did get a bunch of rebounds. He is also a passer, and he did have some assists, right? He did get a fair amount of assists. He's also a scorer, and the scoring wasn't necessarily there, but he was an effective decoy, and he was effective at, like, early in the game when they had Bam Adebayo against him in Game 5, pulling Bam Adebayo away so Jaylen Brown could attack Tyler Hero without really any fear of Adebayo coming over and blocking the shot. So Tatum has probably had his best season at reading the game and giving the game exactly what it needs. I think that when we look at the postmortem of the season and really dive into what did Tatum really do well, and when I write that piece and do that podcast, hopefully not until July, right? That's when the postmortem of this season is going to be done. July, it's going to carry us through July and August. And by then, we have the Olympics to talk about. It's going to be a pretty active offseason for me on this podcast. But Tatum's reading of the game and giving the game what it needs has been really, really good. So that just means that while I stand behind the right guys getting the right stats comment of, when you play the right way in a playoff series, you do have to leave more room for wiggle room, especially when you have a team like the Celtics that has a Derek White who can go off and score if you're paying too much attention to these other guys. When you have a guy like Porzingis, when he comes back and is healthy, who can be a matchup problem. When you have a guy like Drew Holiday who can come in and, hit for, take over a quarter or maybe even longer. And Jaylen Brown, like you have all of these different guys that can do different things. So when Jayson and Jaylen aren't doing their typical things, those other guys can pick up the slack. And it's still the right guys getting the right stats because that's what the defense dictated. But it's not what you would expect. And I think over the course of the playoffs, presuming that the Celtics play into June and play in the NBA Finals, you'll see Tatum's scoring start to rise, and you'll see Tatum will be 1 and Jaylen will be 2, and then Derek White will be 3 with Porzingis a little bit behind him. It'll start to mirror the regular season a little bit more closely as you get into you go from a 5-game sample size to, 10, 11, whatever, hopefully not 12 after the second round, but you start getting into what will be a 20 to 30 game, 20 some odd to 30 game sample size. The things will start to even out a little bit. We'll come back. We'll give Joe Mazzulla the credit that he deserves when we come back. Today's show is brought to you by Monopoly Go. And I know what you're saying. John, we talk about Monopoly Go all the time. Flag on the play. You've talked about that. But there's so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can build up teams with your friends and play in these time tournaments. You work together in those tournaments to build up each other's boards. And the more you win, the more awesome the prizes are that you unlock. And there is a lot to get. Unique stickers. You can trade those with your friends. You can complete albums. Those give you big prizes. There are cool new playing pieces to travel aboards with. What's Monopoly without cool playing pieces? Hilarious emojis for taunting your friends because you need to taunt your friends when you're playing a game with them, and then you can go smash their buildings and heist their vaults. Super cool things that you can do on Monopoly Go, which feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. There's a ton that include their own mini games. So like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. There's always new timed events to help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. So there's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. Get off the bench and go download it now for free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Go check out Locked On Sports today. It's free. It's 24/7 on YouTube. It's also on the Amazon Fire TV channels app. Ditch your Fox Sports and ESPN. Turn your TV away from that. Stream the YouTube channel or get that Amazon Fire TV channels app and get Locked On Sports today. The biggest stories, the best experts, and this show. I'll show up on there because the Celtics are a big story. Let's get back into the mailbag and give Joe Mazzulla some credit because Justin says, hey, Maniac Mazzulla gets a lot of flack from too many Celtics fans. He's one of the winningest coaches of all time. Percentage-wise, that's true. He's won a lot of games already. Players play hard for him. That's true. Also, he's clearly obsessed with the game. That is very true. So what's the deal? People don't like Joe Mazzulla. Why? Goes back to, obviously, success with Ime Udoka. They had a coach in Ime that they liked. They went to the NBA Finals, and then all of a sudden, the Ime thing happened, and he gets dismissed. Suspended first, then dismissed. And the Celtics start out with this new guy, and it's like, okay, but it's not the same thing, right? It's a different style. Boston likes that gritty type of style that Udoka likes to play. The flying around, putting up a ton of threes, playing the math game, that's not really a Boston style. It's not something that fans gravitate to, even though that's modern NBA basketball. And the Celtics obviously had their disappointments. They struggled to finish off series. They struggled to finish off Atlanta. They went too long with Philly. They should have lost that Philly series if not for James Harden. They went down 3-0 against Miami and ended up losing that in 7. So underperforming, and, Joe made mistakes in his first year. And so people really just lit into him. The fact of the matter is, I know why he was hired, because first of all, he's hired because he's good, right? He's hired because he's good. He's on an NBA staff because he's good. And he was on Brad Stevens' staff and held over by Ime Udoka because he's good, right? He's smart. He works hard. And that's the number one reason. The number two reason was he was the only guy that was there that didn't have a connection to Ime that was capable of becoming a head coach. So he kind of fell into the job a little bit, but I think that he's a good coach, and winning a lot of regular season games like he did last year, winning 64 this year. Obviously the team is better. Obviously you hear guys like Derek White talk about how much he loves playing for Mazzulla. Drew Holiday talking about how much he loves playing for Mazzulla. That tells you a lot. And the improvements, the fact that they didn't lose more than 2 games in a row, the fact that they took care of business in this series against Miami like they should have, instead of messing around. And, last year's team probably would have lost game 5 and gone back to Miami to close it out because they did silly things like that. Mazzulla is obsessed with the game of basketball and with winning. And maybe sometimes it can get the best of him because he's so obsessed that maybe he gets a little, frustrated or, set in his ways. But he's been very open about how things need to be. The team needs to be open. And I think that's a message to himself as well. So I think he's done a great, great job. I think he's a really, really good coach. I think he's going to be around for a while. Like, people who are sitting there saying fire Mazzulla this season, and even if you still don't like him, I think you should get used to him, because I think he's going to have a very long tenure as the head coach of the Boston Celtics. I think he's that good. He's only in his second season, right? And he's ready. He's on the verge of getting back to the NBA Finals, I think. And I think they can win it this year. That says a lot. All right, let's get to Cole, who says, hey, thanks for all the content this season. You're welcome, Cole. I'm not sure what your other responsibilities are during halftime, but have you ever thought about going live during the Celtics postseason halftimes? I would prefer to hear your analysis over the game and what you're seeing. So thank you. I cannot do anything live. First of all, I like to get up at halftime and stretch my legs and walk. I've been sitting there for an entire half. I don't get to get up and go to a concession stand. So I get 10 minutes to get up and stretch my legs because I'm going to be sitting a lot. So number one, I prefer to get a little bit of a break at the half. Number two, I don't even think I'm allowed to go live from inside the arena at halftime. Maybe, but I'm not going to be covering it remotely at all. So unfortunately, no. I used to do them way, way back when it was when this show was the Rain and Jays, and I would do a Twitter live at halftime. Those were fun, but that was me trying to break into the business. Now that I've broken into the business, I don't want to, step on any toes. So unfortunately, that's a no. Jamie says, on the morning of Game 4, I saw many tickets available for face value purchase from the Heat box office. Is it just that Miami is a bad pro sports town? Or is the fact that the NBA plays in the months when it's usually okay to be outside in South Beach harm ticket sales, like having indoor summer basketball help doom the summer baseball helped doom the Montreal Expos? I don't think Miami's a great sports town, pro sports town. It's They are late arriving. Everybody's always late. Doesn't matter what time the game is. 7:30 game, 7 o'clock game, 1 o'clock game. They're always late. No one is there on time. That's a bad pro sports town. I can count on one hand the number of times I've been in the Garden and the tip off was for an important game and there's a crowd that still hasn't fully arrived yet. You can say traffic in Miami and all of that stuff. I've gotten to the arenas. I've seen the arena. I get to the TD Garden on time. Fans get to the TD Garden on time. And you can say everything you want about Miami traffic. Boston traffic is a garbage fire. It's ridiculous. And people get there. So I don't know. I think Miami is not the best when it comes to supporting at least the basketball team. You'd think that having a team that's been as fun as them for as long as they've had them would make fans want to be there from the beginning, but they just don't. They don't get there. So I think it's more fans just they don't remember them leaving and trying to get back in when they were down in the finals. Like people just didn't want to stick around to the end of a finals game. And so I just that tells you more than you need to know. That it's Miami Heat fans, generally speaking. There are plenty who get into the upper balcony and get there on time. There are plenty of hardcore fans that get there on time, but the people who are paying to be in the lower bowl, they don't care. Lower bowl at TD Garden, always full on time. We'll come back. We'll get into a little bit more of the nitty gritty of my job and my favorite moments of the season. That's all coming up next. Today's show is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicles, level it up to peak performance. You get superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you're always going to find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because when you're with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. I actually had somebody email me asking me what by the way, what was that? Who's the car company that you with? It's eBay Motors. Said they saved half. They paid half of what they needed for. They tweeted me, said paid half of what they needed for what they would have paid for what they needed. So they saved money on eBay Motors. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers. Thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Go check out Locked On NBA. It's fun playoffs. Even though some series have ended quickly, there's still a lot of fun stuff going on. So check out Locked On NBA. I'll be there on Wednesdays with Jake Madison. I think the Celtics are playing this upcoming Tuesday, so maybe not this upcoming Wednesday, but I'm there most Wednesdays with Jake Madison, so go check that out. Let's get back to the mailbag. Let's polish this sucker off. Justin says, how come players sit at a table? Some players sit at a table for their post-game interview, like a press conference, and some players do interviews standing against the wall, like reporters caught them in a hall. So the up against the wall thing is the locker room. And if you're on my Instagram, which is Karalis 44 on Instagram, I posted a picture from inside the locker room, Jaylen Brown surrounded by reporters. That's the situation that we normally see, right? It's the team makes one player available to the locker room, in the locker room, and they make at least one, usually two players, plus Joe Mazzulla available at the press conference table. That's just how postgame works now. So that's why it's split up. It used to be all in the locker room. It used to be The coach would come outside the locker room, and we'd all surround him in a scrum. And this is all pre-COVID. The game would end. We'd go wait outside the locker room. The coach would come out. Brad Stevens would come out, and we'd talk. And then the locker room would open, and we would get a bunch of guys in the locker room, and we would have the option to go, hey, can I talk to this guy? Can I talk to that guy? And we still have that option, but we're more spread out. So it's a post-COVID thing. COVID changed how post-game things are done, but that's why. That's why things are split up like that. Peter asks, other than good basketball, what's your favorite vibe / moment from the season? Mine was Luke Cornett doing the ice in my veins at Tatum, who struggled at the free throw line the entire game. Good one, solid one. My favorite moment is Kristaps Porzingis kissing Derek White's bald head after White made a play. I forget what game it was, but Porzingis coming in, just grabbing the dome and mwah! Not because I have a bald head and, a kiss on top of the bald head. It's just nice. But that moment was just so funny. It was just it just captured so much the relationship of those guys. Derek White cracked up is a fun moment for him. So that to me is my favorite vibe moment from the season. I think you can throw in like a lot of the bench celebrations. I think any Luke Cornett celebration of something awesome from the sidelines counts. But Porzingis kissing Derek White's head is my favorite. And Finn wants to know what the funniest moment of the season is. Said there's the Giannis game ball situation, Drummond catching Torrey Craig's lob, etc. The Andre Drummond trying to catch Torrey Craig's lob to himself is easily the funniest moment, not only of this season. There are few moments ever that can top the stupidity. When you take into account that situation, they were down. It was an important game. It was the second quarter and they were like trailing. And that Torrey Craig would throw the lob to himself off the backboard. That Andre Drummond would think it's for him. That would happen. The whole thing is just amazing. Amazing. So yes, that's probably the funniest moment of the season. The Giannis game ball situation is also funny. But no, the Torrey Craig, Andre Drummond, funniest, dumbest, most ridiculous, however you want to classify it. That's it. That holds the record. So, all right, that's the mailbag. I want to say thank you to everybody who sent in the questions. Again, if you want to submit a question, you can send it in at johnkaralis.com/mailbag. That's how I organize these things. It's the only way I organize these things because they're all in one place. It's easy for me to find. If you send them anywhere else, they get lost in the shuffle because I got a lot of tweets, a lot of comments, this is the place where I can easily search them. johnkaralis.com/mailbag. But again, mailbags might be infrequent, maybe one after each series, depending on how each series goes. So if I haven't answered your question, that's why, because it's going to take a little while. But I do appreciate you submitting the questions. I appreciate you subscribing on your favorite podcasting app, getting onto that YouTube page, hitting the comments, letting me know what you think, and sharing the podcast, spreading the word. Tell your friends, tell everybody they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.